Welcome to the Unconventional Wisdom Podcast with Ed Rempel, the show about the most effective methods to achieve financial security and freedom. Find out what really works. Insights are based on in-depth experience from a fee-for-service financial planner, tax accountant, Canada's #1 financial planner blogger, and your host, Ed Rempel. Should I start my CPP early? Let's look at some real-life examples. So now the most common CPP question I'm asked is it smart to take my CPP early? So the answer to this question is different for investors than non-investors, especially growth-focused investors like most of our clients. So now in this video, you can learn why should you ignore the CPP break-even calculations that many people look at? So why are life expectancy statistics understated? What is the best way to estimate your life expectancy? What happens if you're still working? How does your tax bracket affect your CPP? How does your CPP fit into your overall retirement income? Who should take CPP early and contribute it to RRSP? How does CPP affect the estate you leave for your kids? Who should delay their CPP to age 65? Let's look at some real-life examples. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, notice this is an updated post based on 2025 CPP amounts and expectations, and also my latest insights. All right, let's start with a quick review of the facts. The maximum CPP benefit in 2025 at age 65 is $1,433 per month. That's $17,196 per year. You can start as early as age 60, but you get 7.2% less for every year before age 65. So if you start at age 60, you get 36% less. So the maximum is $917 per month or $11,005 per year. So now you can start CPP even if you are still working. I often hear people deciding based on a simple break-even calculation, but this misses many important factors. For example, if John starts receiving $11,005 per year at age 60, and Jane starts receiving $17,196 at age 65, it'll take her 8 years to catch up. So the simple break-even is age 73. John gets more before age 73, and Jane gets more after that. So this implies if you expect to live past 73, and most people will, you should delay your CPP, but this is not the full answer. There's a whole bunch of other factors. So now the answer depends on several factors that affect how much CPP you receive during your life, how much tax you pay on it, and how it affects other parts of your life. So, okay, first let's look at how long do you expect to live? So now this is a morbid question, but it's important for this decision. If you start CPP at age 60 instead of 65, you collect for 5 more years. If you start at age 65, you get more and eventually catch up. Now, the longer you expect to live, the better it is to delay CPP. So today, average life expectancy for people that made it to age 60 is 85. Okay, actually it's 82 for men and 86 for women. But this is understated. So average life expectancy has been rising by about 0.2 years each year. So you may think you get, this is if you look over like several decade average. So if you think you get a year closer to death every year, but in reality, it's only 0.8 of a year closer to death every year. So this is mainly because of advances in medical science being able to cure or prolong life for most diseases, or many diseases, especially heart disease and cancer. About 88% of all deaths in Canada are from diseases. By the time today's 60-year-olds get there in 30 years, they are expected to live to age 90. So that's actually 89 for men and 91 for women. Now, if you're married, it's best to use the combined life expectancy. So the one of you that lives the longest should get 60% of the CPP of the other. So for married 60-year-olds today, the one that lives the longest is projected to live to age 94, and that's maybe the number you should use. So most people underestimate their life expectancy. They may focus on how old their parents were, or other family members were when they passed away, but every generation lives longer than the last. So your life expectancy might be lower, your own, if you have significant health issues. You can get an estimate with either the Project Big Life expectancy calculator that targets Canadians, or the Living to 100 calculator with more in-depth lifestyle questions. I have links to both of these on my blog. Without major health issues, it's probably best to use average life expectancy, especially if you're married. Bad genes mostly affect life expectancy for people under age 50, while life expectancy above age 50 is mostly based on lifestyle. Your combined life expectancy based on whoever of you or your spouse lives the longest is probably the best to use. So, in summary, life expectancy suggests most people should wait to age 65. So now let's talk about the next factor. How do you invest? This is where it looks different for growth investors. So starting your CPP early might mean you can take less income from your RRSPs or other investments, leaving them to grow. Then you could take more income from your investments later. If you start CPP 5 years sooner, at age 60, you can leave that amount of your investments to grow. To have the same lifetime income as someone starting at age 65 with a life expectancy of age 90 with 2% inflation, your investments would have to earn an average return of 10.4% a year. In other words, the formula for deferring CPP from age 60 to 65 has an implied return of 10.4% a year. So now investing says that if you expect your investments to average more than 10.4% per year, you should take CPP early. For growth investors, that is roughly the long-term return of the stock market. Investors should generally diversify globally or in the U.S. The average return of the S&P 500 from 1950 to today is 10.8% per year. So now for financial planning purposes, a more conservative return, about 8% per year, is more prudent. But for estimating which start date for CPP is likely to provide the most lifetime income for you, using actual average past returns is more likely closer to your future returns. So it's about similar, but the CPP is guaranteed. So for people with more conservative investments, it's quite unlikely that their investments would average 10.4% per year. You may expect only 5% for a balanced portfolio or 3% for a fixed income or GIC portfolio. So in summary, investing suggests that most people should wait until age 65, but growth investors can consider starting CPP at age 60. It's not a completely clear answer. Now, next issue. Are you still working? What's your tax bracket? So let's look at how tax brackets affect it. So how can you plan to pay the least tax on your CPP? So if your tax bracket is different at age 60 than it would be at age 65, that is a major factor in determining when to start CPP. Let's look at some examples. So if you're still working, CPP income will be added to your work income and will probably be taxed at a higher rate. Most retirees pay 20% tax on their CPP based on taxable income below $53,000 per person in 2025. If you're still working and end up paying 40% tax on your CPP, you expect to pay only 20% in a few years, it's probably better to wait for a year when you have little or nothing from work. For more unconventional wisdom insights, follow this podcast and share it with your friends. I sometimes refer to a chart or image. Don't worry, if you want to see the chart, it's on my YouTube channel in this video with the same name. You can be the first to receive all my new podcasts by subscribing to my email list at www.edrempel.com. My services and costs are at edrempel.com/help. You can request a free 30-minute consultation at edrempel.com/talk. or share feedback and topic ideas at edrempel.com/feedback. Some people can take their CPP with no tax. So for example, if you have no other income at all for yourself and your spouse, at least no taxable income, you could have tax-free income such as your TFSA or low tax income with tax-efficient non-registered investments. So now if your spouse has taxable income and you don't, then your spouse loses claiming you as a dependent, which means you essentially pay 20% tax like anyone else in the low tax bracket. So now, but if you both have no taxable income, you can take CPP at age 60 and pay no tax. In this case, there is no break even. It's over age 100. It's nearly always worthwhile taking CPP if you pay no tax on it. Now, work suggests people earning over $40,000 should delay CPP until the first full year after that you stop working. This is because some or all of their CPP will likely be taxed at a higher rate than after they stop working. So people with no other taxable income should probably take CPP early. Now, CPP can affect how much you get from other government programs, such as old age security. It does not start until age 65, but it's clawed back by other income at 50% for low-income people that qualify for the guaranteed income supplement, and 15% for moderately high-income people with the OAS clawback. So now, if you expect to be able to qualify for the GIS after age 65, it may be best not to start CPP until age 70. So since GIS is reduced by 50% of the CPP you receive after age 65. Oh. Now, if you delay CPP, it's larger and more likely to be affected by the OAS clawback for people with moderately income, in a moderately high income in the future. So summary of the income section and tax. So knowing your expected income and tax bracket for each year from age 60 to 65, including clawbacks of other programs, can be very helpful in paying the least tax on your CPP, which can affect the start date. Now, next issue, when do you need the money? So how does CPP fit into your retirement income? Now, it's nice to get more CPP or pay less tax on it, but you need a plan to have the money you need for your lifestyle when you need it. So some people don't have enough other income and have no choice on when to start CPP, but CPP is just one piece of your retirement income. When you look at how to provide overall retirement income most effectively, you might decide differently about your CPP. So your retirement plan should include figuring out how much income you want and when. Your financial plan should figure out the desired retirement lifestyle you want that's sustainable for you. Most people want to maintain their lifestyle as long as their money and health allow and not worry about having to cut back sometime during their retirement. So now your retirement should also include how to structure your retirement income in the most effective way with the lowest lifetime tax, which includes deciding how much to take from each account. CPP is just one piece. You may also have OAS and RRSP, TFSA, pensions, investments in your corporation or trust, non-registered investments, leverage investments such as Smith Maneuver, or other accounts. So deciding how much to withdraw from where affects how much retirement income you receive, how much tax you pay. Structuring your overall retirement income can make your decision about when to start CPP clear. And I do have a video about that called How to Design Your Retirement Income and Overview. There's a link on my blog. Now, a common belief is that retirees spend less as they age, but that's generally not our experience with actual Canadians. So people in their 80s with money and health generally travel as much as they did in their 60s. They likely do more luxury travel and less active travel. So the entertainment you enjoy probably costs as much in your 80s as it did in your 60s. So, now, if you have major expenses for a few years when you first retire, it might make sense to start CPP early just because you need the money. So, for example, if you are still supporting kids that are at home or in school or with a wedding or home down payment, you might also have major home expenses from moving to or personalize your retirement home. You might be planning one or two huge trips. So I'm not talking about just regular trips or, I might travel more now than later, but I'm talking about two, huge trips. So now many people have high value uses for money, such as lots of RSP room. But taking CPP early and requesting no tax withholding so you can contribute the full amount to your RSP can be an effective strategy for growth investors, but not for more conservative investors. Note this works for RSP and other tax-deductible investments, but not for TFSA. CPP does not leave an estate for your children or for charity, but investments do. So if leaving a legacy for your estate is a major factor for you, it may be helpful to take CPP earlier to invest it and let it grow. Any investments left can be passed on to your desired beneficiaries. Also, people have different values. Some value freedom and being able to live the way they want, while others value security from a higher regular income. If you value freedom, you might consider starting CPP earlier. The extra money gives you more freedom to do what you want. So now, if you value security, you should probably delay CPP to get the higher guaranteed income. So summary of the income issues. So contributing CPP to your RSP can make it worthwhile taking CPP early for growth equity investors, but not for more conservative investors. Specific spending plans in your retirement mean there may be exceptions where CPP earlier makes sense. Being able to leave a large estate can be a reason to take CPP early and invest it. So people who value freedom might also want to start CPP earlier. Okay, so let's look at some real-life stories. Now that we've discussed all these possible issues, who should start CPP early? So first one, Angela. She's 59, ready to retire. She has no investments and only has a fixed pension, not integrated with CPP. Her break-even age is 72, and she expects to live longer than that. Should she start CPP early? No. Second, looks at Brian. He's about to retire. He's a conservative investor with GICs in his RRSP and TFSA. If he starts CPP early, he can withdraw less from his GICs and keep earning 3% a year. His break-even age is 74. Should he start CPP early? No. Next is Chris. He's retiring and is a moderate investor. She wants her balance and income funds to continue to grow. A reasonable expected return is 5% per year. Her break-even age is 75. Should she start CPP early? No. Next is Dave. He's a more aggressive equity investor. His investments are all equity funds, which he expects should get returns similar to the stock market. The stock market's average 10 to 12% per year long term. His break-even is age 87. Should he start CPP early? Maybe. Next is Aaron, plans to keep working a few more years and makes $50,000 per year. If she starts CPP early, it will be taxed at 30%, but because it's on top of her salary. If she waits until she stops working at 65, her income will be lower and she'll pay only 20% tax on her CPP. She's an equity investor. Her break-even age is 82. Should she start CPP early? No. Next, let's look at Fred. Fred is still working and earns $100,000 a year. He's a relatively aggressive investor, expected to earn returns similar to stock market indexes. His CPP will be taxed on top of his salary in a 43% tax bracket. The answer would normally be no. However, Fred has lots of RSP room. His plan is to take CPP early, request no tax withholding, then contribute the full CPP amount to his RSP to offset the tax. Now, leaving an estate for his kids is a high priority for him. His break-even age is 87. Should he start CPP early? Yes. And next is Gabrielle. Is retired and has no other taxable income. Her only investments are her TFSA with equity investments. She would pay no tax on her CPP before age 65. Should she start CPP early? Yes. So, of course, there's tons of examples, but here's some specific ones. It's worthwhile understanding all the issues with today's expectations. CPP is only one piece of your retirement income. Best advice is to think of CPP as one part of your financial plan. So note, delaying from age 65 to 70 is a different question with different answers. I discussed this in a separate post titled, Should I Delay CPP and OAS Until Age 70? Complete answer with real-life examples. There's a link on my blog. Now, I plan to update this post in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned. All right, thanks for listening. What you learned is, why should you ignore CPP breakdown calculations? Why are life expectancy stats understated? What's the best way to estimate your life expectancy? What happens if you're still working? How does your tax bracket each year affect your CPP? How does your CPP fit into your overall retirement income? Who should take CPP early and contribute it to RSP? How does CPP affect the estate you leave for your kids? Who should delay their CPP to age 65? I have some real-life examples. All right, so my name is Ed Rempel. My blog is Unconventional Wisdom. It's the #1 blog in Canada for a full-service financial planner. It's edrempel.com or unconventionalwisdom.ca. If you use that, use the .ca because we're Canada. If you're interested in a free 30-minute consultation to see if it makes sense for us to work together, just go to edrempel.com/talk. Please subscribe to my blog, podcast, and YouTube. All that means is you will get my weekly posts when they come out. My podcast is edrempel.com/listen. YouTube is edrempel.com/watch. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you for listening. For more unconventional wisdom insights, follow this podcast, give it a review, and share it with your friends. Be the first to receive all my podcasts by subscribing to my email list at www.edrempel.com. My services and costs are at edrempel.com/help, and you can request a free 30-minute consultation at edrempel.com/talk. I often cover listener questions, so if you have a burning question or topic on which you'd like to hear unconventional wisdom, please ask or share feedback at edrempel.com/feedback. See you next week.